So that brings me to that part of the show where I get to sit back and relax and introduce to you the amazing Jacqueline Brooker. So those that haven't met Jacqueline before, she is a fifth generation entrepreneur, so that runs in her blood. She holds the global designation as a certified speaking professional. So it means she speaks for money. So people pay her to be on stage to speak. She is renowned for breaking the mold in speaker training. She truly is. I've seen some of her speakers. I personally know some of her speakers, and they are sensational with, from where they are now to where they started. And she does have a reputation for turning experts and entrepreneurs into paid, in-demand speakers. And she has personally coached thousands of people to step into their power and deliver unforgettable, high impact presentations. So she's been involved in TEDx coaching, keynote speaking, corporate storytelling, and sales psychology. And would you believe it? She has been in the media over 3,000 times. So she walks her talk. She's delivered over 180 workshops and worked with all sorts of corporate brands and even gold medal Olympians as well too. So I'm not going to say any more about Jacqueline because she is here to come and talk to us about how you can use speaking to amplify your branding, your credibility, and your business. So let's put your hands together and welcome to the stage, Jacqueline Brooker.
Thank you so much, Nick. What I might do, because I'm going to be sharing directly from my camera, so if someone can spotlight me from your team would be amazing. Just otherwise it'd be far too small for people to see. I love, Nick, that you started out with what people fear the most, which is speaking. And here's my true confession. So most people will see Nick's own description of she's an incredible speaker, she's fierce on stage, she's really accomplished, I've got the global designations. And the truth is my husband's online and he'll back me up, is that every time that I am about to speak, I go in the fetal position and try to cancel my gig. So my fear has never quite left me. I just know how to get it under control. And so I guess part of why I teach other people is literally the whole line, if I can do it, so can you. Because looking from the outside, looking in, you would think that that's not part of my world, but it definitely is. So if we could just spotlight me for a moment, that would be incredible. So that I can click over, because otherwise you may, well, it's not, hang on, going to change the camera. I'm doing a Nick. There we go. Okay, amazing. So while we're waiting for that to come up, your voice, your advantage, I'm really passionate about this. The only way to truly grow scalable growth, unless you've got an AI or a tech platform, if you're in any sort of services, consulting, expert or knowledge-based business, you are going to actually need to find your voice and be spoken. It's the fastest way to actually get a credibility and authority. And so this is the thing that we really teach a lot of our people. So when it comes to what we're doing, the breakthrough strategy has always been speaking. I don't care who you are, your background, your breakthrough strategy to go to the next level of anything is speaking. And especially in the age of raising AI, I mean, all of Nick's tools just then were all AI driven, right? Now, in the age of raising AI, it's a late in the day. I've been talking all day. Can you tell? In an era where AI is definitely raising, your only true competitive advantage in the future will be your original spoken word content and your original voice that people come to trust and know as yours. And so that's really, really important to understand. The other thing is that it actually hasn't changed since the dawn of time. You know, the people who used to make the money as traveling merchants were the people who could stand in the town square and get attention through the words that they used. So it actually is not new. A lot of the noise is new, though. We live in an increasingly noisy marketplace. So when people first come into my world, there is usually two questions that I get asked. So the two questions that I do get asked are, how do I get paid to speak? And how do I find the right audiences? Now, sometimes people are talking about getting paid to speak as a keynote speaker or professional speaker, but sometimes they're also just wanting better stages for their business. So they're the two questions that as people come into our world, 80% of people will be asking one of those two questions, if not both. And yet the two questions should be, do I want to make money from speaking, which is as a paid professional speaker, or do I want to make money through speaking, which actually a lot of people, the majority of people, want to make money through speaking if they're an expert or a business owner. The two things are very easy to identify. Making money from speaking means that you want to be paid directly for speaking or facilitating MCs, workshops, things like that. And speaking through and making money through speaking means that you're actually going to generate some incredible leads through when you speak. And this is what I really want to unpack for you tonight. But the first thing I'm going to tell you is this. It actually doesn't matter what your answer is to those questions. And because the build is exactly the same, whether you want to make money from or through, the build is the same. You need a strategy, you need content, and then you'll get breakthrough. People seem to focus all in on strategy, like how I'm going to get the stages, or they seem to focus all in on content, which is like, what's the thing I'm going to say? You need both together to get breakthrough. The other thing that I would actually like you to consider is if you're like, but I'll speak for free anywhere to generate leads. Well, to get the stages that can generate the right leads for you, you've still got to be really good. Money is simply a benchmark of demand, right? So whether you are getting paid directly for the speech you're giving, or you're actually going to raise and increase revenue through speaking, all it is a benchmark of demand. And what that means is that it doesn't matter which one you're doing, you've got to be good, right, to stand out in the marketplace. But if I can go from literally being someone who refused to speak until she was 29 to somebody who now does what she does for a living, then I would suggest that anyone who chooses to make this part of their future can do the same. And just to bring that home, well, my road to becoming a paid professional speaker was kind of interesting. I refused to speak till I was 29. I might just take myself off that split screen at the moment. I refused to speak until I was about 29. And then I got caught in the crosshairs and had to speak one evening, had to step in the last minute. And the only way to describe that was I was like the shy, quiet teenager that discovers crack cocaine. And I went from refusing to speak to speaking for anyone, anytime, anywhere, in any room. Just give me a microphone and one breathing person and give me the topic, and off I went. And everybody loved it. I was in a regional centre and I was in demand. I was speaking 3 to 4 times a week. I was opening charity events. I was emceeing events. I was in media, because that's the other thing that comes with a speaking profile. And I suddenly realized about 18 months in that people loved my energy and they were always looking forward to the next time that they would hear me speak, but they couldn't remember what I'd said. And that, as an introvert who suddenly found this love of speaking, actually broke my heart, because I was like, well, what am I doing this for? People can't. They can remember the rah-rah, but they can't actually remember what I said. And so I went on a journey to doing this and became so good as a free speaker, building my business, that the first time I actually held an opening keynote spot on a conference stage, I did it for free because I didn't know you could get paid. So it was actually at a conference of 500 people. I was opening keynote, and in the green room, somebody said to me, oh, you've got the opening keynote spot. I want to do that one day. What did you get paid? I want that spot one day. What did you get paid? Now, my inside voice at the back of my head was, what do you mean get paid? But I was an industrial relations negotiator, so the words coming out of my mouth were, I don't disclose commercial terms with anyone. And then I went straight off to find my client, who was the CEO of the association. And I said to her, Carly, apparently I'm the opening keynote speaker. She said, yes. I said, is that really a thing? She said, yes. I'm like, apparently you should be getting I should be getting paid for that. And she's like, oh, yeah. And I said, well, why aren't I? And she goes, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. We just completely forgot about it because we work so closely together. Shoot us an invoice for 10K and I'll pay it. Right? So I literally stumbled into it. My point is that I grew my speaking skills as a free speaker to grow a business. And in that, the crossover happened. So I don't actually really care when someone comes my way if they want to be a professional speaker or they want to grow their business through speaking, because the build truly is the same. Now, to kind of bring that home, and I was just going to pull up a slide, I'll try and do that now. To bring that home, what that means, and if one of the team can spotlight, would be amazing, is that it also plays out with my clients right now. So Jermaine was on stage at the event that Nick and Paul were at last year, and Jermaine came into our world doing one of our digital programs in November 2023. In May 2024, she did our masterclass series that we've just wrapped again. In June 2024, she joined one of our programs. She delivered on stage in December 2024 at Resonance and Resolve. She's actually got the best results out of the room on the day. but she'd never actually spoken on a main stage keynote before that. And she wants to be a professional speaker. So out of that day, as a first-time keynote speaker, she got more than 20 testimonials. She got 7 qualified leads. She was picked up by a speaker bureau, and she actually signed 2 gigs within 72 hours of that event. She had never spoken on a stage before. Then, and this is the gentleman that both Nick and Paul know, which is Dave Greenberg. And Dave also speaks on stages, is a subject matter expert, but what he's discovered in our process is that he would prefer to deliver workshops and consultancy services. So he's now using his speaking more to drive that rather than just straight keynote. Now, he's had some incredible breakthroughs and some incredible successes in the last 6 to 12 months. And we've really transformed how he shows up on a stage for keynote speaking, as well as for general network speaking. And it's changed his game. He's on track for his best year yet. But my point is, both Jermaine and Dave went through the same process with me, right? So one is absolutely firing to be a professional speaker. Dave can do either, but he's got to focus on actually working with businesses. So Dave can do either, but it's exactly the same process that we took them through to get them their results. So it really doesn't matter too much. Now, this next bit is really important, okay? And I really don't care, again, if you want to be a professional speaker or grow your business through speaking. This is the bit that really matters. I'm just going to draw in here a little bit for you. So when you first think about, I'm going to speak more, and some of you on here have been quite experienced, especially prior to COVID, with that, and we will come back to that in the Q&A. When you first realize that you want to speak, you're at the stage that I call asleep and fighting. And what that means is the market actually doesn't know you exist. People in your own lunchbox may know that you exist, but as far as the market is concerned, you are asleep. But now that you've discovered that this could be a thing, you feel like you're fighting for attention. The next level up from that is what we call being noticed. So that means people are noticing you. You might be getting asked to speak in smaller rooms, chamber rooms, online free summits, things like that. That's all a bit random. And even though people really love you, you're not quite sure how you're ending up in places, you're not quite sure what to do with it, but people are noticing you. They're sharing your content, they're commenting on your presentations. You walk past and say, great presentation the other day. That's being noticed. Now, this next bit actually sits at what we call the tipping point, which is this bit between the red zone and the gold zone. And this bit is, you're so good. And this bit will kill you, right? For anyone who's ever experienced it, and this is where a lot of people come into our room. They're hearing all the time, you're so good, you're so amazing, your work's incredible, the world needs more of you, why are you not everywhere? And you're getting all the right signals and all the right signs, but you close the door at night and you know that either you're not getting the results you want, or worst case scenario, you're actually broke. But you can't tell the outside world that because everybody's telling you that you're so good, you're so incredible, you're so courageous, you're so brave. This really crystallized for me. I was already working on this, and it really crystallized for me with somebody who asked to work with me a couple of years, just before COVID actually. And I was quite surprised because from the outside looking in, well positioned, award winning, all sorts of things. So I said to him, look, next time you're speaking in Brisbane, I'll come in and have a look. So we had a closing keynote. I came in and had a look, 500 people in the room, finished speaking, came off, stayed in the back of the room. 400 people would have said yes, would have waited to speak to him before they left. So as you can imagine, that feels like success. And as they walked off, as the last person walked off and we started to exit the venue, he looked at me, he said, see why I'm so confused? Like, what's going on? Everyone loves me. Like, yeah, they do. But what they were saying to him was, you're so incredible, you're so brave, you're so courageous, your story is phenomenal, everyone needs to hear from you. And that is all about him as the speaker. What we need to do with you is we need to get you into what we call the gold zone. And the first level of this is, you're in my head. Right? You're in my head. It's like you're looking in my windows. How do you know my world? Right? When you said this, it reminded me of that. When you walked through how you did that, I realized I could share that with my team. So the difference is they come up to you and they explain and share with you what it's actually done for them. They volunteer what they thought about, what it reminded them, and what it gave hope about for them. Nothing to do with you. In fact, one of my clients in WA recently told me she was so glad I briefed on this, because a woman came up at the end and was talking about Becky's story with a dog. Becky didn't tell a story of a dog. And she said, before working with you, I would have tried to correct her, but I just realized she put herself so far in my story that her own story had overtaken her. And that's where we want people. We want to get from their minds to their hearts, right? When they're telling you how good you are, they're in their head. When they're telling you what this did for them or what they realized or what it elicited in them, you're in their heart. And that's where you need to get for people to follow you, for people to do business with you, for people to trust you. The next bit up from there, you're in my head, is, this is the one most of us like, is here's my check. So that's literally payment. It is, I need you in my world. Can we talk about how we're going to work together? Can you come and help my team? Can we have a conversation? Can I buy your thing? It's here's my check, right? Now, if you're a charity founder or a movement founder, which we've got a lot of charity founders coming into our world at the moment, it might be a partnership or a collaboration that you really need. So here's my check. It's some sort of commercial exchange where they're actually offering it. So we have people go from fighting for survival to literally having people say, I don't care how much it costs. I need to work with you. You need to come into my world and fix this thing, right? And then from there is what we call the trifecta. Now, the other thing, just going back down to you in my head, the other thing that you will hear at that level, if you're a business person, business builder, is you'll hear them say, have you ever come across or have you ever seen? And that's your cue that they're about to share something with you that matters to them. At the top of that triangle is the trifecta. And the trifecta is you pick up, if you're a professional speaker, you pick up 3 gigs out of that room. And if you are a business builder, you pick up 3 leads at least 3 leads that lead to great pieces of work, right? And that's our minimum benchmark. So what I'd love to do is in the chat, if you can get your fingers ready, I'm going to number these off 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Where do you think you sit at the moment? And if you're not even on the scale, that's fine. But it's also a good idea to understand sometimes what our frustration point is and what's creating it. Because this is one of the things that is really important. 3 to 4, amazing, incredible. One of the shifts that also occurs when you go from red zone to gold zone, so this bit down the bottom is red zone, even though it looks like it's blue and pink and stuff. One of the things that happens to you when you go from red zone to gold zone as well is you actually have more energy. So one of our clients came to us, she'd been speaking for almost 10 years at $3,000 a gig, couldn't break through to being well paid. We shifted her up to, reshaped her content, got her up to $8,000 to $10,000. She was a professional speaker. But she said to me, you know what the biggest difference is? She said, I was going to quit not because of the money, but because I was exhausted every time I come off stage. Because it was all about her, she felt like they were clawing more out of her whenever she came off stage. Once we shifted the content, same content, just repositioned, when people came up and were talking about what it did for them, she found that energizing. Now, we also get people in the gold zone who then get clever and they drop back to the red zone. So just because you hit the gold zone doesn't mean you stay there. The game is actually staying there. So along here, we've got just the things that were mentioned on the way in. I'll just rip through those before we get to the 7 mistakes, because in my career, so what you'll see here is a lot of things of sales. I love sales. I love pitching. I'm a pitch coach. I'm working with, great people, that sort of stuff. What I've found in more than 22 years of coaching and building speakers, both in my own businesses and the businesses that I've led, and then the last 8 years doing this as a business, is there are 7 key mistakes, particularly business owners and subject matter experts make. The first one is speaking for applause and not action. Right? We get addicted to applause, and applause, I'm going to put it a really simple way, fans do not write checks. Just this week, I spoke to yet another person who has got a following. She's a following of over 350,000 people on TikTok. Every time she does a video, she picks up another 10,000 more. It's insane, right? But she's not making money, right? Fans do not write checks. People who love you will not always be the ones who write checks. Now, it's okay if it's someone like Paul Kennedy in your world who's great at connecting you. That's a different story, right? But speaking for applause and not action and not decisions is a major mistake that I see everyone make. There is also a misconception, mistake number 2 is that we think authenticity means we have to wing it, because that's how we're natural and that's how we're raw and real and all of that. Winging it is actually disrespectful to your audience. They're giving your time and your attention, and you should be so good at the front of that room that they enjoy the experience, which is exactly what happened for Nick, right? When he came, he didn't know who I was before walking that door with Paul that day, but he enjoyed the experience. Authenticity, your ability to show up as you truly are, is actually having solid frameworks and foundations in place so that you can actually be the best version of you, and you can actually be fully available for your people because you've got it so down pat. Sounding like everyone else, right? So many people we work with come into my world saying that they have clear messaging, and yet they sound like the noise. Do not be so attached to your positioning that you cannot fix it, right? Because what seems unique to you may, in actual point of fact, be common in the market. And so many people are not getting the results they want, either to generate leads or to close deals or to be paid for their speaking, because as much as they're passionate and much as they've got this incredible expertise, they sound like everybody else, right? The fourth mistake is you leave the audience with ideas instead of decisions. You have to give them enough information that they can make a decision to approach you, that they can make a decision to put their hand up, that they can make a decision that they need to know more, that they can make decisions about whether or not they're actually doing the thing or need to do the thing. But most of us leave people just with ideas without leading them to a decision point. Now, that decision point is not selling from stage, which is mistake number 5. It's going to sound crazy. The mistake number 5 that I see people make all the time, especially when we're business building, is thinking you have to pitch or sell from stage. My biggest sales results from stage have come from when I have not sold from stage. And I've repeated it over and over again, both here and the USA, right? You do not need to pitch or sell from stage. You need to be the absolute authority in your space. You need to position yourself as the expert. You need to tap into the psychographic of your audience so they know they need to work with you, so they know without a doubt that you are the person to solve their problem, right? Every time I've got someone to stop pitching from stage or stop seeding a pitch from stage, they've ended up with better results. And there are some crazy case studies that I could give you, but we don't have the time. But this is a big mistake. Give people the best of you, but not all of you. Be so good they can't help but bring themselves into your world. Shine, be generous, and don't sell, and you will sell more. It's this incredible contradiction. The next thing is speaking to the wrong people. So many people are doing lots of speaking, but they're speaking in the wrong rooms, right? Or they're speaking to their peers and not to their audiences, or they're speaking to their fans and not to the people who can make decisions to write checks. If you're not generating leads, or if you are generating leads that don't lead to conversion, especially if you're building a business, there's 2 things that could be wrong. Number 1, and most likely it's your content, you're sitting in the red zone. Number 2, you're speaking in the wrong rooms. The amount of times I've had to redirect people, not every room is created equal. And even if you are in the same sector as somebody else, their room may not be the right room for you. Okay, so speaking to the wrong people is the biggest mistake I see, and that's what gets people exhausted. And then the other thing is that people think speaking is the strategy. Heads up, it's not. Right? Speaking is one of your products, it's one of your services, it's not the strategy. You need a strategy around the speaking to actually convert it and end up with increased revenue. Now, when you've got all of those happening, or even just one of them, what it does is it leaves you feeling overlooked. I don't even know if you can read my writing. Valued and invisible. Now, what we work with people and what you're going to need instead to bring this together is, with overlooked, you need to know how to command the room. Because until you know how to command the room, people won't give you this unless they love you and it's a friend. My headphones just went dead. Hopefully you can still hear me. Can I get a thumbs up, Nick? Amazing. And then if you're undervalued, what you need to understand is that comes down to your positioning, right? Your position in the market and your positioning. So if you're undervalued, then you need to understand mechanics of a speaking driven business, right? Whatever you're using business speaking for, you need to understand the mechanics of a speaking driven business. It is slightly different. And once you understand that, your value shoots through the roof, right? And then also, long as your content's good. I'm assuming everyone here is a subject matter expert and their content's going to be amazing, okay? And then the next thing is, if you're feeling invisible, It's because you need to actually play like a pro. What do I mean by that? The speaking industry, the events industry, even if you are on, we had said Cameron was speaking at major events before COVID hit, right? There are rules to the game, right? And if you have expert positioning and celebrity positioning, you'll just get pulled in and that's fine. But the speaking industry and the events industry, the networking industry and the business events industry, there are rules of the game. So you need to play like a pro to break through the dome of invisibility. And the way that I describe this is that there's a mantra I used to live by, and it was an Albert Einstein quote that I heard before the internet went crazy. So I'm pretty sure it's his. And it's literally, first you've got to learn the rules of the game, and then you've got to play them better than anybody else. But so many times we think that we can just skate through. So what would be the reasons? I'm talking to all of you primarily as business builders. So what would be the reasons that you might actually put yourself into a place where you're actually going to pull this together? What would be the reasons and the benefits for you? I'll just run through a few of them. Establish yourself as an expert. Expert is the word behind my head. Establish yourself as an expert. The fastest way to do it, the way of that is that your content's great, right? You want to get paid for your expertise, and that might be directly through speaking or for your business. Saying goodbye to cold outreach. Now, one of the things that's really interesting is it can actually reduce your amount of cold outreach, but if you actually think it's going to bypass sales, think again. Because the irony is a lot of people do speaking thinking it'll bypass sales, and they have to sell themselves to get on those stages to sell the thing, right? So, but you can say goodbye to most of cold outreach when you really get your speaking machine moving. It does create additional revenue streams. It adds a crazy amount of revenue to your existing business. It expands your networks and it elevates your brand visibility, or it could be something else entirely. But generally speaking, they're the 6 reasons that we see business people come into our world. But this is where most people fall. They are caught well and truly in the clever trap. And the clever trap I can do this and I can do this and I can do this and I can do this, and let me throw in some steak knives, right? Now, all that does is overwhelm and overload your audience. And it's come about, I believe, because we have this internalized sense of FOMO, fear of missing out. So if I land on this, what if I lose that? If I land on that, what if I lose that? But the truth is, if you don't land on something, then you'll never actually get the breakthrough that you want, whether it's great clients, better projects, faster sales on your SaaS platforms, whatever it might be, you won't get the breakthrough that you want. But once we get past this, once we understand that we need to land on one thing, this is the next mistake we make. We fail to solve an important problem. Every day in the last 10 days, I've had a conversation with someone where they're selling their expertise instead of solving a problem. We naturally sell our expertise and we forget that we're there to solve a problem. I had a really accelerated success in a labor hire company 20 years ago. And the reason why we had that was one of the things I used to say to my staff every single day. We are here. We only exist to make our clients' life easier. If we lose sight of that, we are dead. And I feel as though most of us have lost sight of that in the marketplace today. If you're not solving an important problem, if it's just about your expertise, then you are not going to break through. And that is full stop. And some of these exercises that we've done in the last few days is a leadership speaker that no one's booking. So his tagline is unlock leadership potential and drive high performance. No one's waking up thinking about unlocking leadership potential, right? What they are thinking about is they're losing too many good people, right? So the repositioning of that is why your top employees are quitting and how to fix it before it's too late, right? We've got somebody a consultant who can't convert high-paying clients, even though she has $1 billion background. She markets herself as I help businesses scale fast, but that's too broad. The problem is usually cash flow, bottlenecks, client retention. So what we've come up with for her is, are you struggling with cash flow at 5 million? We know, here's how to break through the growth plateau, right? So solve an important problem instead of tell people your expertise. Super, super important. Now, I said earlier that authenticity means not winging it, even though that's the belief that we have. And we actually need structure. For anyone that loves a good TED Talk, the only reason that became the most viral format of its generation is because it's structured to within an inch of its life. I don't suggest you have to do that. But if you want to deliberately move people from where they are now to where you want them to be, to where they never expected to be, you cannot do that on a whim. You have to have structure. So I'm going to give you just one of the 7 structures that we use, and it's going to be very high level because I'm very aware of the time. So the structure, if you just draw a loop like this is a simple speech structure, and this is what we put into it. So this is the starting point, and this is where you're taking them. And the reason we always have the arrow at the end is because you're taking them somewhere better, or the perception of a better outcome or world. Coming in, you start with story. And I'll talk a little bit more about that very soon. At this crossover point, we go short and sharp. This is what we're about to teach you. And that's what gives us permission to change gears from telling the story to what I'm about to share with you, right? And this is where you create that ability to get them to buy into why they should stay with you. So the story builds trust and connection. Then we go, in the very limited time we got left together, what I'm about to share with you is X, because when you have X, then you get Y, right? So that they have a reason to stay. It's very short and sharp. Then in this is what we call the engine room. And the engine room is where we give. This is where we're generous. We give insights, we give process, we give models, we give frameworks, we give wisdom, we give. Now, it's the best of us, but not all of us, but we give. And then coming out, we literally loop back and close the open loops, right? Now, if you can take that with you, it will really change your game. Now, the other thing that happens when you use structure is that you've actually got a power move, because when you use structure, you can very quickly change how much you're using if your time gets cut or expanded. So that's part of the Jenga move. The other Jenga move is we use structure and story together, right? Not one or the other. A lot of people think that it's structure and story and it's data. So we use structure and story and teaching all together. And that combination makes you irresistible to most people. Just very quickly going to touch on stories. I can't go too far into this. I've got all these examples I want to give you, but I actually can actually, like, I'm very conscious of the time. There's only one reason why we tell stories. We don't tell stories because we love them. We tell stories because they deliver a point. They have a point to them. Think about fairy tales when we're growing up as kids. They all had a moral point to them. We don't tell stories because we love them, and we don't tell stories because it shows how clever we are. We tell stories only to land a point, and we open with story and not with data and not with questions and not with facts. We open with story because it's the fastest way to create trust and connection with your audience. There is no faster way. Now, what this also means is that sometimes you have to, and I've got to get this right because Nick puts this onto YouTube, and what I normally say can't be used on YouTube, but sometimes you got to kill your little darlings, right? Don't be so attached to your stories that you can't see that they're actually what's killing your presence on stage. We see it all the time. And then what all the best people do is they teach, which is a bit in the engine room. Now, the reason why we do this, and this was my discovery when I opened at the start of this and said, you know, I realized that people couldn't remember what I'd said. So to be remembered, you need to embed yourself. So first of all, you need to go from head to heart, and you can only do that through story. People will not drop into their heart with facts and figures. First of all, you need to go head to heart. Then you need to teach them. And it's only in teaching them something, the best of you, preferably you're being generous, that you embed yourself into the cellular memory of your audience, right? They will remember. And the easiest way to think about this is, what can you share with them today that they can use tomorrow and then share with someone else again the next day? If you can get something like that into the engine room, people will remember you whether or not they used it. And it also kicks into place the law of reciprocity, right? So there are all these principles that come flying in when you actually teach them. Now, for most of you, you're going to be looking at making money through speaking, okay? And there's 3 things that I want you to know about them. The first is, you may not get famous on your home stage. You may need to go to adjacent stages, right? So you may need to, whether it's geographically, whether it's industry vertical, whether it's discipline. Sometimes you can't get famous on your home stage. If you're facing that, go to adjacent stages, whether it's the ones in the next city, the next biggest city, whether it's ones in a related discipline, whether it's ones in industries that butt up to yours. That's number one. You won't always get famous on your home stage. So if it's not working, go somewhere else and come back, right? Then you also need somewhere to take them. So many people don't have somewhere to take them. So if somebody falls in love with you on a stage, they're going to want more of you. Have a LinkedIn, have a connection point at the minimum. It should be LinkedIn if you're growing a business, unless your business is Facebook based. The second thing is you should have an artifact, something they can take with them, something free. Now, that can be as simple as something like a stress ball, or it could be a great opt-in. There's a myriad of things. But the second thing is an artifact. And the third is you need to know what the products and services are that you're willing to have a conversation with them about. So those three things need to be in place. I don't have time to run through this tonight. I just want to give you some really quick examples. So Kate is a business coach who'd been working, and some of you may even know Kate. She'd been doing the circuit. This was before COVID. And there was a particular conference she spoke at gathering that she spoke at every year with about 120 business owners in the room. She heard me speak in a similar presentation to this and realized that she's loved, but she's in red zone. She'd never actually made any money or generated any leads out of her speaking, even though people would get her back year after year. We repositioned all of her content. We structured it because she was someone who was winging it in the name of authenticity. And the first time she delivered it was to that same room, third year in a row, except this time she sold out her private coaching programs. It was over 6 figures. And she got offered a paid gig to Hamilton Island that with all expenses paid for her and her team, right? That was a difference. Same crowd, same person, structured, right? And this is what it does. Kevin, who's Nick and Paul saw on stage, Kevin has got back into speaking. He's gone straight back to his previous fees before COVID. But the other thing is that his business revenue has actually he's overshot his financial and contractual goals for the first time in 10 years. Right, by learning how to do all of this stuff. Then Lee is the founder of a charity, okay, and that charity, we did a keynote. She launched it at her own event, and she went from, they were having to fight for every $500 that they got, and in one night they closed $21,000 in donations. Just, again, she'd been speaking for a while, but just structuring it and getting it so we solved an important problem. The best is when you can do both. When you can be paid to speak because you're good enough and you can use it to drive your business. You can choose to do them both together, and there are so many examples of that, or you can choose to do one or the other depending on the scenario. We do that now, right? We speak sometimes to build business, and we also speak for me to be paid. So that's the best combination that there is. So whatever you're thinking and wherever you are, can I just urge you to really consider investing in your speaking skills? I would not be here today if I hadn't have done that, right? Has anyone ever been through a bad period of business where things don't go to plan, right? So whilst we talk about the glitz and the glamour, what I do know is this. I've had massive impacts on business where I've had to take the AMWU to the High Court. I don't know if any of you have ever done that. It's not fun, right? But because I could speak and pitch and position, it changed the game, and they weren't expecting it. I've actually recovered from a major receivership that was very public. So whilst there's the glitz and the glamour, where these skills really hit the road is when crisis erupts and you have to communicate, right? You have to communicate, you have to position, and you have to get to the other side. So there is no end to the benefit of, as a business owner, deciding to invest in your ability to speak, to claim your position, to generate leads, and to drive revenue, and also for those skills to come to the forefront when you really, really need them, because you can't just suddenly step into them. For all of you on here, it's a quote by a football coach. I've just gone blank on his name, but he says, you know, in the heat that we think that in the heat of the battle, we rise to the occasion, but the truth is we sink to the level of our training. And that works for if there's a crisis, and also if you suddenly get an opportunity you weren't expecting. So please do think about what you're going to invest in, and invest in your speaking skills to generate lead, drive revenue, and get whatever you want. Thank you.
Fabulous. Thank you, Jacqueline. Any questions there, or comments, or anything people want to bring to the to Jacqueline here? Feel free to pop up your hand or drop it in chat. I'm not sure whether there are any questions there in chat.
I didn't see any coming up. I was trying to keep an eye on it, but also there was some, just while people are thinking or wanting to drop things in the chat or putting their hand up, there was a couple of comments in the networking before about, what has changed since COVID and that sort of thing. So there is a couple of things that have changed because of since COVID. The biggest thing is this, is you actually now have to be good. Anyone can speak. The platforms and the digital space has gone crazy. Anyone can speak. You actually have to have something that will cut through the noise. And the first thing is you need to be solving a problem. So there's not a lot of tolerance now for people at the front of the room because we tolerate so much on the digital platforms, if that makes sense. The other thing that has changed is that you do need to be able to do, thanks, Kel, you do need to be able to do virtual. Right, invest in the right light, invest in a good mic. You have to be able to do virtual. Don't let your AirPods go flat halfway through. Have good cameras and things like that. None of it's complicated. You do need to be able to do virtual. There is, in the first couple of years, until about 12 months ago, there was a lot of emphasis on hybrid. I actually refuse to do hybrid events. They're really hard to actually engage everyone. If there's an AV team in place that has that background and can show you how well, then agree to it there, but otherwise you're actually eroding your position and trying to scramble. The other thing was somebody asked in the networking, how do I maximize the profitability when I do speak? Use the golden minute. The team will be sending out a link to our podcast. There is an episode there called the Golden Minute. Go and listen to that. It's about 7 minutes. That's how you maximize your profitability. That's how we take people from actually generating no leads to one of my colleagues and clients in the US closed a almost $1 million deal by using the Golden Minute. So you want to maximize your profitability, right? Then you need to go and understand what to do with the Golden Minute. So yeah, so that's just a couple of questions that came up in the networking earlier.
Fabulous, excellent. Any other questions at all that you've got? This is a great opportunity for you to grab Jacqueline while she's here.
And the name of the podcast, I'm just writing it in now, Speaker Driven Business.
I've just sent a connection request to LinkedIn for you.
Thank you, Peter.
Fabulous, excellent. Any other questions at all? We are a quiet
Not really.
bunch.
I just thought that I would have, well, I actually do have a question. So, as someone who hasn't spoken really, well, I actually used to run fitness programs of 400 people in basketball rooms from 18 years of age. But when I started teaching online, I've now got over 20,000 videos. My room is actually virtual. I'd like to move it back to, being in a room, which is, quite fine, but of course terrifies me, but that's the whole gig, I think. I love auditory, so I love video, I love auditory. I think I would have been a better student way back when I was 18, going through university, if we had have had those mediums. That's how I get to teach and all the things. My understanding is that a good proportion, I work a lot with women in business and scaling their businesses to the online space to actually literally get people moving from A to B, like getting a result. Like that's my gig because, we've worked a lot with athletes and I've had chiropractic offices and all the things. But is that it's still very male dominated for men to stand up in front of people on a stage.
There's a reason for that, and I get very passionate about this, is because we're actually hard to find. So as much as everyone's screaming, women, we need women speakers, and there's too many men, we are still too hard to find. Now I've got a massive conference happening on the Gold Coast in mid-June, and I was starting to put it together and I realized, like everyone does as a conference organizer, the first names that come to mind are men, even though I work 80% of our audience is women, right? The other 20% are good men. And so I went, okay, great. I'm networked, PSA, Professional Speakers Association, all these different networks, all this. It was still really, excuse my language, it's still really freaking hard to find women to put on a stage. And then when I did find someone or went looking for someone, I couldn't find enough evidence, their positioning, for me to trust putting them in my room. I mean, we're talking a conference of 350 people over 2.5 days. I am not going to put somebody who was highly recommended, I cannot get anything from her to change that to trusting her to put her on my stage. And yet everyone I know is recommending her. right? So the quickest things you can do to change this, and we've got the same problem with AI. 87% of coders in AI are male, right? And what do women do, especially Gen X and baby boomer women do? Oh, this is too much. I don't want to, it's a machine. I don't know that I want to be part of it. The only way to change it is to get in and be part of the training of the machine, right? So we are, and that's the perfect metaphor. We are the ones allowing the machine not to be trained, right? So
I totally understand. I totally understand. And I've gone against everything, which is my conditioning is to hush, hush, be quiet, act like a lady, all of the things. But yeah,
there's
every
a couple
time I
of really
speak, I've
quick,
got something to say.
yeah.
But I also am shy. So if you
Yeah.
met me, I wouldn't say much, you know.
So there's a
But
couple of things to do that I'll give you as quick tips. Number one is you actually have to have your minimum collateral, so at least on one sheet, and at least say you're a speaker on LinkedIn, right? So optimize your profile on LinkedIn, be findable, right? The other thing is in your SEO on your website, put female speaker on in city, on topic in city, female speaker on topic in other city, female speaker on topic in other city, female speaker on topic in Australia, because event organizers are literally going to Google and typing in female speaker on.
well, most of my clients are overseas, English speaking. I only speak English. My daughter speaks languages, but they're everywhere.
Virtual female speaker, female speaker New York, female, I don't care where the location is. Wherever you want to be found, put that into the SEO strings.
Got it.
Really important because it's so hard. And there are people out there, I would say most event organizers, conference organizers, event owners and managers are looking deliberately, look, their first thing is finding female speakers. And then when they can't, they go back. And so you can let if you're shy, and I literally, Martin's not on screen at the moment, but I literally get in the fetal position, right? I am introverted and I am shy. He forgets, we walk into a room and I'm 10 meters behind him and he's like, come back and scoop me up, right? Because that is who I am. But I now let my content, so my podcast, and I just let that do the talking. And then once people come in, they feel like they know me and the ice is broken. So just do that. Linda, you're great at content, right? You get it great at helping other people position. Do it for yourself and let that do the heavy lifting. Right?
I'm also warm when you meet me. So in a room, I'm not worried about, but that's actually, just something I was really interested in. Same with podcasts when I had my, It seemed to be very male dominated once again. I'm like, well, I understand why women are busy. I had 2 kids in 20 months. They're big kids now, but I understand why they're busy as well as other businesses. But
most of it is simple. Most of it is simply we just don't make ourselves visible. And that's literally what it is.
Well, if women have to get out more words, why are they not saying more words?
Absolutely.
That's a fact. I have have those degrees.
Thanks so much, Linda. There's just a comment in there asking if there's a link for the conference. No, there's not, because we can't release the conference until the industry conference is done, but it will be on June 12th and 13th on the Gold Coast at the QT Hotel, and it's called The Business of Speaking. We have got Michael McQueen speaking, Ginger Gorman speaking, Rochelle Courtney speaking. And if you don't know these names, just Google them. We've got some incredible presenters. We've got Kate Toon coming. We've got Jason Knight, who's the craziest branding brain you've ever seen for visual branding. We've got David Averin coming from the US, who is extraordinarily generous with how you build a business. So there's this massive lineup of speakers. If you've got the ability to clear calendars, and I'll make sure that Nick's got the details once we can actually release it in the last week of March.
Hey,
Fabulous.
are you there, Nick?
Yes,
Hi.
Paul.
Listen, if I could just pick up on something Peter said about connecting with Jacqueline on LinkedIn. If anybody here isn't connected to Jacqueline, could I suggest you do, because she just mentioned the word generous. She is so generous in sharing her knowledge. Tonight has just been a snippet, and she has 1,000 one-liners of bullet points of things that we can all take away. So my only suggestion is, if you like what you've seen, this is not a paid advert. I really encourage you to connect with Jacqueline on LinkedIn, and that way you'll see some of the activities she's up to and various Facebook groups she runs, and invites people to come along and see what she has to offer.
Thank you so much for that, Paul. We did just run an incredibly successful LinkedIn campaign, so I do encourage you as an expert. We had an opt-in that the post, and it was a slow burn and then it went. So it was a slow burn and then people were getting it and they were like, wow, this is generous, and encouraging everyone. So we ended up with 1,000 comments or just under 1,000 comments and 600 leads into our database. Right. And from there, we actually ran a free masterclass series that we wrapped up last week. We had 419 registrations and an average of 25% of people turning up every day. And from there, we are selling people into our signature program that lands people in that resonance and resolve stage. And that program kicks off first week of April. And that's what lands the incredible speakers that Nick and Paul have been talking about. So, getting your positioning right. The only difference, we ran a similar thing last year. The only difference between last year and this year is we got more visible and we got our positioning spot on. And now, so if you can use LinkedIn, wherever your people hang out, like if it is Instagram, then it is Instagram. If it's Facebook, then it's Facebook. But wherever your people hang out, the minute you get your positioning crystal clear and you get out of your own way, because I was the one stopping it from being crystal clear, get out of your own way and understand the problem that you're solving, then whatever platform you're on will work for you.
So it sounds like, Jacqueline, the process of becoming clear as a speaker also helps you with your marketing and your social media as well.
So getting clear, and both of you know Dave. So Dave came to me, his keynote positioning title was Lessons Hanging Under a Helicopter. For those of you who don't know him, he's flown 4,000 flights with Wellington's rescue helicopter as a crewman, and he was the one who would reach down and get the people and all that sort of stuff. Incredible stories. But Lessons Hanging from Under a Helicopter puts you into the nice to have category. So we repositioned him, and his keynote is now From Crisis to Control, right? Which is a must-have problem because everyone feels like they're in crisis. And now when you land on his website, the first question you hear is the position came up with him, which is a question. And the question is your organization ready for its worst working day? Now, both of those things together have totally changed his marketing. Paul's watched it, he knows him. It's totally changed his marketing. It's totally changed his messaging. And all of a sudden, he's not having to hustle. I mean, we all have to hustle, but it's working. His business is going up. His engagements are going up. Everything's working. You know, he spoke last week in Brisbane. He flew in from Wellington. He spoke at a LinkedIn local event, which was 80 people, 90 people. And he's got an incredible amount of opportunities that come out of that because now his positioning is clear. So the positioning that he needed clarity on for his speaking has completely cleaned up his whole business.
Fabulous, excellent. So there's some extra tips there or sort of advice there, I think, you know, for those of you that are looking to improve your organic presence, your social media presence, that there is, you can almost run a whole session on that as well too, couldn't you?
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
I'll leave you with one tagline on that. Everyone thinks that they need to be clearer in their message, but what they actually need to be is closer to the problem that they're solving.
Mm. Excellent. Well, thank you, Jacqueline, for coming on tonight and sharing that with us. I've got a whole lot of clarity out of what you're speaking about as well for me as well too. So that's incredibly helpful as well. If anyone wants to, or the best way to get in touch with her, is it LinkedIn, is it?
Yeah, LinkedIn is the best. Lorena's just dropping the profile in there now. Thank goodness for team. And not even my team, Nick's team. So Lorena's just dropped that in now. That is the best place. That's where I play the most.
Fabulous, excellent. So feel free to connect with Jacqueline. She is incredibly generous with her knowledge as well. And if you're curious about that post that she had on LinkedIn, that's probably a good reason to jump in to sort of see how that went off. That's an incredible result as well too, and worth studying. All right, well, we do have a door prize for tonight as well too, and it's kindly provided by yourself. So tell us about that before we go and draw it.
Yeah, so it's a 1-hour positioning audit. So exactly all the things we just were talking about. So if you are already speaking, actually getting that positioning really, really clear or identifying where you need to improve. And if you think you might want to, it's making sure that if you're going to make that step, that we get your positioning really clear. So it's just a 1-hour audit.
Fabulous. Who wants that one?
Me.
Excellent. All right, we've got a special way of drawing this as ever. So now's not the time to leave the room because you have to be in the room to win it. So on the edge of your seat, we've got our magic wheel. All of your names are in this wheel. If we do draw out someone who has left the room, you're in for the second chance draw. So let's spin that wheel. Maybe a virtual drum roll on the desk in front of you. See who our lucky winner is tonight. And it is Cal Holiday. Congratulations, mate. That is awesome.
That is very awesome. Thank you very much.
Looking forward to that, Cal.
And isn't it interesting? People that participate in these sessions are the ones that win. So, and Cal was in there with a question as well. So,
Well, my cousin's at holidays, so maybe, you know, you can hand it over.
maybe something will just rub off.
Also, my dad's cousin is named Kelly.
Excellent. All right, well,
Not related, I don't think.
we'll connect Cal and Jacqueline. We'll connect you both tomorrow by email in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, congratulations. If you've enjoyed tonight's session as well, or you want to watch it again, it will be up on the Smash Go Smash Go YouTube channel tomorrow afternoon. It is actually on Facebook too, because we live streamed this tonight if you want to go and watch it straight after this. If you do know someone else that you think would benefit from this, feel free to send them along there to that particular session, which again will be up tomorrow afternoon as well too. We'll shoot a link out to that there in our email that'll come out after the session as well too. So let's put our hands together and give a big round of applause and thanks to Jacqueline.
Thank you so much.
Next week's topic will be all on it's on copywriting, but it's got a twist to it as well too. We have a guest on talking about how to write compelling magnetic words and how to get out of your way when writing as well too. So that's Claire Jones. She will be on here next week. Feel free to jump in and register for that session as well too, which will be ready tomorrow. So you can jump in tomorrow and register. Exactly the same link that you used to register tonight, and that is in chat. Now's a great time to go and save the chat with the three little dots on the top right-hand side. All the links to the online tools are there. All of the links there through Jacqueline are there. And anyone you want to connect with, they're all in there as well too. All right, that's our session.